Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where we share insight from the real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and indeed reshaping entire industries too. Now, I recently read about a great guy called Frank Goodman, who is the founder of a company called Bleeding Bulb. And that name itself captured my imagination. I had to delve deeper and find out a little bit more information on them. And essentially, they're on a mission to make small business owners more productive while also keeping their overall business costs low. And they believe that a company's core values contribute to its success and growth. So for these reasons alone, I invited Frank Goodman onto the podcast to find out more. So come with me on a quick trip to Washington, D.C., where you can join me and Frank in conversation and eavesdrop on a conversation where we talk about how they're leveraging technology to help businesses be more productive while also keep those business costs low. Something that we all subscribe to, I'm sure. So let's get Frank on the show now. So a massive warm welcome to the podcast, Frank. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. How you doing, Neil? Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So my name is Frank Goodman, and I am the owner of Bleeding Bulb. I know the name is a little weird. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But so basically my business focuses on growing small businesses, and we do that through strategies, websites, and apps.
I feel we've got to tackle that question early on now. So Bleeding Bulb, where did that name come from?
Yeah, so basically what happened is, I was trying to figure out what name I wanted to use, and I started with using parts of my name. And then I kind of circled back and I was like, you know what, this is supposed to be a creative company. And so we need to have a creative name. And so I started with different qualities or what people kind of knew me for, because, a lot of times, like, when you're starting out, you're by yourself. So, people are going to come to you for your strengths. And so I was really known for having a lot of ideas. And so it really just had me go on this whole journey of like, what can I say that associates the company with ideas? And so I started with thinking about like what symbols represent ideas. And of course, a light bulb popped up. And I was like, well, I have a lot of ideas. Like we have a whole lot of ideas. And so I just thought of like this light bulb that just like was oozing of ideas. And so I couldn't call it oozing bulb. I thought that was a little weird. Bleeding bulb sounded a little rough, but at the same time, I think that it was a little catchy. And I ran it across a couple people. It always made people say like, what does that mean? And so I looked at that as a marketing opportunity because I was like, you know what? People are going to be curious. People are probably going to ask questions when I'm out networking. And it attract people. So I think it kind of stuck a little bit. And so I'm pushing along with that. Yeah.
I love it. I think it's a great name. And one of the reasons you appeared on my radar as well was one, because of the name, but also because when I delved a little bit further, I wanted to find out more information, is that I quickly learned that you're on a mission to make small business owners more productive while also keeping their overall business costs low. But can you expand on that and the kind of problems that you're solving for your customers?
Definitely. So I started out in big corporate. So I work with the Lockheed Martins, the Northrop Grumman's, the Booz Allens, these larger companies that deal with really large budgets. But the problem is the services that they receive are the same services that a small business needs, but it's just not available. So when you think about the small business success rate and why it's so low, the number one reason is cash flow. And a lot of that stems from education and it stems from just having access to different tools, because they're so expensive and they stack up so fast. Like, you get all these different subscriptions. People are selling you all these different things. You don't really know where to start because if you think about like even our education system is really not around entrepreneurship. So you're kind of starting out fresh and you don't have a whole lot of guidance. And so I started to think about like, small businesses kind of make the world go round. Like there's more people hired by small businesses than they are by large corporations. And so I was like, you know what, there has to be a way to kind of lower this overhead and kind of give them a little bit more structure to get them ahead and get them to avoid some of the mistakes I see being made regularly. And I know about these mistakes because I went through a lot of them. I started in 2010, so there's just a lot of ups and downs along the way. And I just felt like it was necessary for me to kind of pass that information on. There's no need for people behind you or to the side of you to fall in the same traps or have the same, fails or if you want to call them fails, but that I've already had. I can at least share that experience and kind of try to help them avoid some of these things.
And I love that side of what you're doing. And when I was doing a little research about Bleeding Bulb, I quickly learned that you have a great backstory too, where you went from troublemaker to an accomplished engineer and business owner. And I love a story about anyone with a rebel heart. So can you share that journey? As I really do think it could inspire other people listening on a similar journey out there.
Yeah, sure. Nah, definitely. So, ever since I was really young, I've always been in the principal's office or like had some type of problem. Because, I was just a natural rebel. I wasn't big on authority. I really didn't like people structuring my day, telling me what I had to do instead of asking me. It was very small things that are now when you look back, it's kind of like, it's kind of stupid in a way. But it's like I love making my own decisions and just being an independent thinker and really just saying like, this is not what I think is the right thing, so I'm not going to do it this way. Or even seeing someone else fail and just not saying that way doesn't work. They didn't do it right. And so I was always big on like, no, like things aren't right or you don't tell me what to do with my life and my decisions that I make are on me and just really wanted to take ownership of life. And so I think when I look back, I think the education system kind of, I wouldn't say completely failed me, but early on, it didn't get my attention because I was really big into business. I was really big into, finding ways to make money and things like that. And they never gave me that type of information. So to me, everything was boring and it didn't apply to me. I couldn't figure out why I was there or what I was supposed to be doing because I just had no interest. I didn't care about history. I didn't care about any of these things. I wanted to learn how to make money, how to, build a business and things like that, even at a very young age. So for me, I think that really put me on the track of just not performing well. Later on, due to chasing a girlfriend at the time, I tried to get myself, straighten up my whole situation with grades. When I was 15, 16, my parents went to Germany and I stayed behind with some friends. And there was some hard times that came with that because I ended up not being able to stay all the time with them. And other arrangements that were kind of set up, they kind of fell through. So, some days it would be like the whole little car thing or a parking lot here and there. But overall, like it was a good experience. It taught me to kind of grow up a little quicker, because I was working and I was going to high school and still, trying to make things happen there. But when I found out my girlfriend was going to college, because you have to be mindful that or understand that in my household coming up, we've never used the word college ever. Yeah. Like it's never been said. Not one time has that word probably come up in our household. I didn't come from a family to where we really knew a whole lot about college like that. My grandparents, my grandfathers, they, dropped out of high school. They went military. My dad was in the military. He was really smart. He was considered probably the more educated person in our family. And so it wasn't as common. And because I was always in trouble, it really wasn't a thing for me to just have college as the next step. It was really a toss up. People didn't really know what I was going to do. So fortunate for me, I had a girlfriend I was trying to chase. And then I had a counselor that said to me one day, your girl is going to leave you because she's going to find a Trevor. And I'm sitting there, I don't know what a Trevor is or who Trevor is. But he said he's going to be a trust fund baby that, has money, come from money, and he's going to be stable and you're going to be working at Foot Locker. And for me, I don't know why. I usually don't let anything get to me like that. Like I have pretty tough skin, but I could not sleep right that night. And so, really after thinking about it, I was just like, Trevor isn't going to get my girl. You know what I mean? So it's the weirdest thing ever. But, Yeah, so basically, I go on this quest to make sure Trevor doesn't win this situation. So I like make straight A's my last year, but obviously, like I did so poor early on, I didn't have the GPA. So I ended up sending, the application off. I was rejected. But her mom at the time, she was like, your story is very unique. You need to talk about, like you starting early and your parents being in Germany and just tell them your situation, and how you kind of turn into a straight A student, because there is room for people to kind of wonder, like, how do you go from DC or a very average student to, straight A's, like it's just, it's something in the middle that has to be explained. And so I didn't really want to do it, but she told me I better sit down and start talking. So she started typing and she just had me talk. And as I was talking, she was typing. And then after she finished, she put it in an envelope and she said, put it in the mailbox. I put it in the mailbox, and then some time went past. I followed up with the university, and they turned around their decision. They said we switched our position. Basically, what the letter said was, it talked about, my parents who been in the military went to Germany, me staying behind and me working and doing all these different things, and said that, for me to be able to, be able to get straight A's, like there has to be, something there. And if you were to accept me in the school, like I will finish, like I will complete and I will graduate. So they ended up turning around the decision, and I went off to college. And yeah, after that, education was a little easier for me just because like it started to be a little bit more focused. And since I went computer engineering, it was kind of tied to, financial gain at the time, because this is, a little early on when everyone didn't want to touch computers. Like opening a computer was like a thing, it was like, wow, like this is like crazy. It's the mag, all these little wires and stuff. Don't touch anything. So people were very afraid of computers back then. But yeah, so I started with the whole Northrop Grumman, then I went Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen, and just gained a lot of experience there, and especially Booz Allen, where I was introduced to consulting. And it's something that I was always doing because I always had side hustles and things that I was doing coming up. But it really kind of put some structure and some understanding to different things, from proposal writing to just like how they run their business, because they allow you to be a part of different areas of the business, not just do a task. Like you can be a part of the business. So that was very, very helpful for me. And when I decided to do my thing, I was just like, it was pretty natural. People always ask me to do things on the side. And so I was just like, I started out as a tech shop, just doing websites and apps, because that was my, my undergrad. My undergrad was computer engineering and grad was system engineering. So it made sense to me to start with tech. But what I noticed quickly was, we were producing these websites and apps and we were doing our part, which was great. But some of the later clients would be like, yeah, but what are the successes? Like, tell me a project that was successful. And that started to bug me a little bit, because I'm sitting here and saying it wasn't my responsibility to make them successful. It was my responsibility to deliver the app. It was my responsibility to deliver the website. But in reality, or after I let it set in, it started to bother me, and I was just like, you know what, like I'm not doing my part. Like I've had to build my business. I've had to go through a lot of different things, and I'm sitting here on this information and I'm not sharing it. Like, why am I not sharing this information? Why, if I know the average person that wants an app doesn't know how to market that app, if I know the average person that gets a website and think that if I build it, they will come, if I know that's not the way that it works, why am I just building products? So I started to reshape the business and say, you know what, we're going to focus on looking at it from a holistic view. We're going to focus on saying, okay, where do you want to be in your business? What are your goals? What are your objectives? Now we focus on OKRs, objectives and key results. Like, where do you want to be? And then let's reverse engineer from that. Let's see how we're going to get there. And so that really just became the core of the business. So now everything is about like, where do you want to be? And let's, backtrack from there and let's create a path to get there, So that's really like the story of how this all came to be.
I love that your story, and so much of it resonates with me because I think traditionally education always used to teach everyone to absorb information and everybody thinks exactly the same. But when you do think different and see the world differently, you automatically feel like a round peg in a square hole and begin to get frustrated. But what I love about what you've done here is you've used that to your advantage and your passion for technology and used it to raise small businesses' success rates through strategy, websites and apps and so much more. And actually thinking differently by using technology to solve bigger problems is a great asset, isn't it? But did it actually help you overcome a lot of your previous frustrations?
Absolutely. One of the earlier frustrations and what really helped me out early on is technology can take the place. Some people would say it will take the place of an employee, but I really think people need to focus on thinking, and their certain tedious tasks should be focused. Technology should take over that. So fortunate for me, since I knew technology and I was able to code and things like that, a lot of tasks that an average person probably would have needed people to do, whether it be follow-ups or certain things like that, I could build things to assist me in my everyday tasks. So I could be a little bit more efficient or be able to accomplish a little bit more than probably the average person that was just doing everything themselves. Now granted, that only takes you so far, but it was a huge help being able to leverage, tools and technology and code to be able to, run some of the processes that I needed ran regularly.
100%. And here we are in 2019 now. You're enjoying fantastic success, but just to help everyone listening visualize the kind of work that you're doing, do you have any examples of how you're actually helping businesses leverage that digital space to help them meet their own goals?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not even always digital space. Like that is a big component. But right now, a really big thing that I'm pushing is accountability partner, because that is kind of the core of everything. A lot of people, they look at these the situations that they have, and they're really trying to just look for a Band-Aid. And we're trying to get to the core. We're trying to get to the root. And so with the accountability partner thing is really something to where, say, for instance, it's an hour a week, or they can have more. It's totally up to them. But the standard is an hour a week where we get on a call for an hour. And people pay more if they want it in person, but really it's just an opportunity for me to hold them accountable. Not only are we setting goals and creating strategy, but we're working on execution. And then I'm checking on that execution. I'm making sure you stay true to what it is that you're saying you're trying to accomplish. So a lot of times, we share the same thing in a small business community, the idea of being lonely, people not supporting you. You're not having a clear direction on what you want to do, not having people to bounce ideas off of. These are all things that we all struggle with and we deal with every day. Like the family doesn't believe in you as much. Your spouse maybe. Like you feel alone. It can be a very lonely path. And so we really want to help support them in that way as well, not just saying like every solution comes from technology, but what are your needs? Because a lot of times it's accountability, because people fall off. People will start something or they have an idea and there's just so many distractions, whether it be, people don't like to hear family or whatever. But the reality is, for me, is if it's not towards your goal and what you're trying to accomplish, it's somewhat of a distraction. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's not to paint it in a negative light as like family is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a lot of distractions that we have in life. A lot of people wake up and they're just doing the tasks of everyone else instead of their own, so they're really like kind of living other people's lives in a way. And so what I'm trying to get them to do is like say, we said we were going to do this. We set deadlines. We set dates. Where are we? Let's stick to it. Let's do it. Okay. If it's about productivity, let's focus on, okay, what systems can we put in place? And that's where that technology that you talked about comes in. Like if we're talking about productivity, we can probably streamline some of these processes, but first we need to understand what processes are in place and what need to be in place. And then from there, we can either leverage other tools that exist, or maybe you want to make a custom tool. Maybe you want to make a product, for another stream of income. It really just depends. But I have a tendency to like skip around and like, be a little scatterbrained. So you can always reel me back in because I just like, that's how my brain works,
You and me both. I suffer from the same problem, but I think it's a good thing. But I'm curious, from those small businesses that you're working with and talking with in these weekly hour-long calls, are there any similar challenges that they're all struggling with? And if there is any particular trends there, how are you helping them all overcome these trends?
Yeah, I mean, there are very similar trends. The average small business, as I was saying before, they usually have a cash flow problem. And it's not always around revenue because you can have revenue at the end of the year, but cash flow from a day to day to be able to have the money to pay, whether it be personnel or whatever the case, like cash flow is always an issue. Is usually the root, what they see as the root. Like say, for instance, they'll say to me, I need to increase sales. They'll think that they need new customers. Sometimes it's just they need to nurture the customers that they already have. They need to understand their needs a little bit better and better service them. And that could increase, their sales, right? But yeah, it's usually around sales where I find that it's a lot of people's pain point. Sales and accountability. People fall off of their goals. They'll set things and they can't stick to it. They get distracted, Those are two really big pain points that I run into regularly when it comes to small business owners.
So what's your process in helping businesses? Where does that relationship with a client typically begin?
Yeah, so it really begins with understanding. We'll start asking the right questions. We have targeted questions that we want to ask to kind of really tease out what is the point? Like, why did you even start this business? Because we need to understand if you're just trying to make money, those really aren't usually our target when it's just all about the money. Like, because I feel that you can't be as successful when there's absolutely no passion or there's nothing behind it. It's just the want for money. But usually we're trying to get to, why do you exist? Why do you even think what is the value add? Like, what are we here for? And then it's like, what do you want to accomplish? And so then from that conversation, we can say, okay, well, let's see, based on your budget, because a lot of people, they'll say, these are our service prices and that's it. That's not the way that we work. We can tell you, we can make recommendations and say, hey, look, we think this package or we think this combination of services and products would be good for you based on what we said the goals were, right? But the reality is there's a budget constraint, and that's another challenge that I should have said before, budget, right? Everyone has a budget. Most small businesses have a budget. Everyone has a budget. Forget it. Everyone has a budget. Okay, so some people need to work from the budget that they have. Some people's budget are a little smaller than others. So if you have a smaller budget, we're trying to find the most effective way for you to spend that money. So we set those goals and we say where we want to be. And sometimes it's just a longer path, but at least we can set a strategy around that budget. And I think that's one thing that's somewhat unique about us, to where we don't have to focus on us just having our set prices. We can adjust our services and things like that, or even consider other things like outsourcing or other, like, what are ways to make this happen? Even if it's not through us, like, our goal is to really just get you where you're trying to go. So if some of the services aren't through us, like, we don't have a problem saying, like, you may want to consider, doing this piece over here and doing that piece over here. And then maybe here we focus on strategy here, and then we could get execution done over here. So it's really just looking at the budget, looking at, the goals and the problems or opportunities that we'll like to call them, and really just like make it all work, like come up with that strategy.
And it was only a few years ago, really, that technology in a small business pretty much was a computer, keyboard, mouse, and a monitor, and maybe the occasional app or piece of software. But of course, now technology is at the heart of every single business. So what digital technologies excite you out there at the moment? Is there anything that particularly excites you about the future, especially now we're heading into 2020?
Absolutely. I think what excites me is the same thing that scares me a little bit as well, and I think that's data. The amount of data and analytics and things like that we have at our fingertips is kind of crazy. And what you can do with it is crazier. Like the ability to predict, the ability to, really see to be able to tell a story with numbers and tell a story with metrics and things like that is very interesting. But it can be a little freaky at the same time, So, but I'm very excited about being able to better serve people when it's used the right way. I like the idea of being able to better serve people. and you don't have to be so reactive, because I'm really big on being proactive towards finding solutions instead of waiting for something to happen. We want to kind of identify it in the early stages and avoid it. Right. And so those are some of the things that we can really gain with technology and data. We can really kind of get ahead of things. And that really kind of excites me, because I'm all about like people avoiding mistakes, And so as soon as I start to see trend, I can, signal like, hey, look, maybe this is something we want to, consider right now. Like, understand that this may be a situation in the future, given off of experiences. I think that's very valuable. Data is just everything now.
So as for Bleeding Bulb, what's going to be your primary focus over the next 18 months? Is there anything big that you're focusing on, or what's taking up all your time at the moment?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. One is we have something called Bulb Suite. It's not to be compared with like Microsoft Office or anything like that, but we're coming up with a suite of applications. There'll be 6 of them, and they're all geared towards making small businesses more productive. They'll all be reasonably priced. And I know that's relative, but they'll be reasonably priced, and we're going to keep the cost low, because we know that these different tools and these subscriptions that's out there, they provide value, but they also come with a heavy price ticket, and a lot of people cannot afford it, and they stack up. So you'll need a CRM, then you'll need, a social media management tool, then you'll need this, then you'll need that, and it just keeps stacking. So we want to come up with some applications, and they've already been developed. We're just waiting on a launch schedule. But we really just want to provide some opportunities to the small businesses to get ahead, like leverage some of these tools and take ownership of them. Like, I want you to create them. I mean, not create them, but I want you to take them and then give us the feedback so that we can shape them into whatever it is that you need. And I really want it to be the small business center, to where it's like, if you are a small business and you want to grow, you're going to touch Bleeding Bulb at some point in time. Like, you need to touch it. Like, we have applications, we have services, we have different things that's going to help you. And we're the ones that's going to tell you, like, we're straight shooters. So you're going to know whatever it is that we really feel. We're not going to sit here and sugarcoat. And we just want the best for you. Scale as well. That's definitely big on the list. We want to scale for sure.
Fantastic. And for anybody listening that would want to find out more information, could you point them in the direction of your website, and also how they can reach out to you or just a member of your team if they would like to carry this conversation that we started today?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.bleedingbulb.com, BLEEDINGBULB.com. And you can also reach me at Frank@BleedingBulb, FRANK @bleedingbulb.com. And also you can follow me on Instagram. You'll find that I have this other app that we launched that's doing really well called Happy. We actually was just in Time Magazine. They came for a 2-day shoot, which was really exciting. Yeah, feel free to follow me on Instagram, bulb_life, BULB_LIFE. And you'll see some of the things we're doing on the day-to-day. Just like, I'll start to scale that account as well, really build that account up. But it's really my personal account. You'll see us doing different things, like up super late, building things and trying different things, and just, going through the typical small business journey.
Now, you've got an inspirational story, and I love how you've proactively transformed your frustrations and created a positive solution that helps others be more productive and also avoid making mistakes. And from one rebel heart to another, Frank, thanks so much for sharing that journey today. I'm sure it'll inspire others listening out there. So thanks for coming on.
Hey, I really appreciate everything, Neil. I mean, the podcast is great, and I wish you the most success. I look forward to talking to you again, man. It was great.
Man, what a great guy. I just could chat with Frank for absolutely hours. Also an incredibly cool and patient guy too, because the Amazon guy knocked on my door and interrupted me mid-podcast, but we took it all in our stride. And I think everything turned out okay in the end, didn't it? But what I love about what Frank is doing here is how it was all born from his own experience and frustrations, and how he personally felt something was not quite right and something was missing. So I love how this rebel bug that he had inside of him just never left, because he wanted to enjoy work, but the structure and rules actually ended up draining him. People were giving him orders, taking credit for his work, But rather than going all negative and feeling bitter, he created a solution. And that's an amazing achievement. So Frank, I salute you, my friend, for turning a negative into a positive and using technology to not only bring people together, but help others be more productive and learning from other people's mistakes too. But as always, please share your thoughts, takeaways, personal insights or questions by simply sending me a quick email to techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweeting me at Neil C. Hughes. And finally, before I go, we've had a big spike in listeners over the last few weeks. So if you have only just discovered this podcast, don't wait until you're a long-time listener and first-time emailer. Send me a message now, because I genuinely love chatting with each and every one of you and even meeting some of you when I'm at tech conferences or in your part of the world. So please, keep those messages coming in. But I'm sure you've heard more than enough from me for one day. I'm going to go and rest my vocal cords now, calm myself down into a zen-like state. But have no fear, I will return tomorrow again like there's a big, excitable ball of energy. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.